Okinawa, April 1945. The first U.S. troops landed under a clear sky and an eerie silence. They advanced without resistance. What looked like an easy conquest would become a deadly trap. The silence shattered. Underground, hidden in caves and fortifications carved for months, more than 120,000 Japanese soldiers waited for their moment, not to win, but to kill and to die. Behind the lines, an even more invisible force prepared to strike. More than 1,500 kamikaze aircraft stood ready to hurl themselves at the U.S. fleet with a single purpose: to drag as many enemies as possible into hell with them.
The Saratoga hit by 4 kamikaze planes. Uncle Sam's oldest and biggest carrier, victim of air attack for the first time in 3 years of Pacific warfare.
The initial calm gave way to an inferno of mud, bullets, and torn bodies. Every hill taken cost hundreds of lives. Every yard gained was an open grave. Civilians were trapped in the crossfire. They suffered bombardments and, in many cases, were branded traitors by their own army and executed. The entire island became a cemetery that drew no line between combatants and children, between soldiers and the elderly. It was the bloodiest battle of the Pacific. And a question haunted the United States. If this was Okinawa, what awaited us in Japan? On April 1st, 1945, more than 180,000 U.S. soldiers set foot on Okinawa in the largest amphibious landing of the Pacific Theater. It was Easter. Many thought the operation would resemble Iwo Jima, though with less resistance. At first glance, the terrain promised few challenges: wide beaches, a clear sky, and, most unsettling of all, absolute silence. It seemed too easy. No machine gun rattle, no background thump of mortars. No one stood in the way, and Allied forces advanced for hours without firing a shot. They set up bases, brought tanks ashore, and moved supplies inland. Commanders practically celebrated the conquest of Okinawa. The last stop before the Japanese archipelago seemed within reach, but the island hid its worst secret. In the south, within a web of tunnels, bunkers, and caves hewn from volcanic rock, General Mitsuru Ushijima, commander of the Imperial 32nd Army, had ordered an unprecedented strategy. Instead of stopping the enemy on the beach, he would let them come inland. Then, from the hills and caverns, he would tear them apart slowly. Like a leaf-covered bear trap, Okinawa was ready to snap shut. The warning signs came late. Patrols sent south began to vanish without a trace. Radios fell silent. Ridges that had seemed empty erupted in crossfire. The hills became fortresses. Every cave spat shrapnel. To advance a single yard, dozens of lives were sacrificed. Hell had begun. A bloody struggle took hold. Japanese soldiers, resolved to die, launched attacks from every corner. Their mission was simple: destroy the invaders at any cost.
In the mountains of Ishikawa Isthmus, these dramatic sequences were filmed. Dazed and burned, the snipers survived the blast.
Even so, the Americans were just as determined to reach their objective. Their advance became as ferocious as the Imperial resistance. Every underground fortification they found was crushed without mercy. Those inside faced the war's verdict. US soldiers stopped counting days. They counted dead comrades. In the hills of Okinawa, hidden in caves and silence, true hell was only beginning, and it wasn't confined to the ground. At sea, 7th Fleet lookouts began spotting shadows in the sky, kamikazes, suicide planes dropping like burning meteors onto carriers and destroyers.
Here's one heading over a battleship toward the carrier Bunker Hill, and the Bunker Hill is hit. The Bunker Hill aflame off Okinawa after direct hits by 2 bomb-carrying kamikaze planes. A blazing furnace of exploding gasoline and ammunition that riddles her decks and bulkheads.
For Japanese pilots, dying was a duty. For American sailors, watching them come was a nightmare with no escape. Barely into the battle, the US fleet off Okinawa became a floating target for a new kind of horror. Planes loaded with explosives with no intent to return, diving straight into enemy ships with a precision as brutal as it was terrifying. They were young recruits, many with only a few hours of flight time, driven by the conviction that dying for the emperor was the purest honor. The word kamikaze, meaning divine wind, recalled the ancient storm that, according to legend, saved Japan from the Mongols. Now it was a human storm the High Command hoped would halt the American advance at an unbearable price.
Of all kamikaze planes, only 1% ever gets through to the heart of the fleet. This technique is costing the Japs 1,000 planes and pilots a week.
Between April and June, more than 1,500 suicide aircraft fell upon Allied ships. At least 34 were sunk, and more than 300 were severely damaged. In the heart of the ocean, sailors became defenseless targets, watching a figure in the sky plunge at full speed, wrapped in flame. There was no reasoning with that enemy. It didn't negotiate. It didn't surrender. Aircraft carriers were prime targets. Within minutes, hangars rich with fuel ignited like torches. Flight decks turned into fields of charred bodies. Screams, fire, shrapnel. Sometimes the pilots missed, but a single direct hit could turn a ship into a floating slaughterhouse. From the sea, the only option was to shoot them down before they got close.
Task Force 58 off Okinawa and in waters adjacent to Japan. Terrific anti-aircraft fire is a potent defense weapon against kamikaze.
On land, the logic was no different. Japanese troops did not seek survival. They aimed to take as many lives as possible before dying. Many launched suicide charges against American positions. Others, when cornered, pressed grenades to their chests and embraced an enemy with them. For the Americans, it was a breaking point. The traditional rules of combat no longer applied. War in the Pacific wasn't about territory, it was about annihilation. The enemy fought without fear of death, and that made him terrifyingly relentless. Every fallen kamikaze was a warning. Japan would not surrender, not without an inconceivable price. The results were plain to see.
The aftermath of a Jap suicide attack on Yontan airstrip. Striking in coordination with other enemy units in an 18-hour attack on 24th May, 13 sallies attempted to land on or near the airstrip gasoline and ammunition dumps. 6 were shot down by fighters, 5 by anti-aircraft fire. Most of the crews in the planes that landed were killed in the crashes or by aircraft personnel. Wounded Japs destroyed themselves with grenades. A number of our planes were set on fire.
Images like these made clear that Okinawa left no room for winners. Everyone suffered. Only the dead and the forgotten remained, and a question with no answer. Was any price worth paying for victory? Okinawa was not simply a strategic island. It was a home, a green archipelago of fields and rolling hills, inhabited by more than 300,000 civilians, mostly farmers, the elderly, women and children. When war came, it did not strike only military targets. It came with indiscriminate fire. The first American bombardments before the landings leveled entire villages. Naval guns and aerial artillery rained down day and night. Houses of wood and thatch went up in flames at once. Families fled into caves carrying what little they could. Some died when the tunnels collapsed. Others burned alive trying to escape.
Naval bombardment and artillery fire on 22nd May almost completely leveled this east coast anchor of the Jap defense line stretching from Naha to Yonabaru. The town had a peacetime population of about 5,000.
The true horror didn't just come from the sky. Civilians were trapped between two armies. To the Americans, they were indistinct targets in the fog of war. To the Japanese, many were suspected traitors, accused of sheltering the invader or passing information. As the front retreated and desperation mounted, Imperial soldiers began to see enemies in every peasant face. They feared islanders might collaborate or flee and be captured. To prevent it, extreme measures were taken. Tens of thousands were forced into suicide. Grenades, knives, and ropes were distributed. People were told the Americans would rape them, torture them, enslave them. Mothers killed their children with stones to spare them a worse fate. Others leapt from cliffs with babies in their arms. In the caves, many families died of asphyxiation, not from enemy explosives, but from fires set by the Japanese themselves to clear retreat routes. Soldiers who refused such orders were threatened or executed. The honor of the empire demanded it. Meanwhile, Allied troops rounded up survivors as prisoners. The battle ground forward with no clear line. It became a bloody quagmire with hand-to-hand fighting among rubble and corpses, and field hospitals ran out of morphine. The wounded died screaming. In many cases, military doctors killed their own patients to keep them from falling into enemy hands. The invading forces fought to crush the resistance, and the hell they unleashed swept away everything in its path.
As the Americans eliminate the last pockets of resistance, thousands of civilians who have been forced to shelter in caves are trapped in an inferno of explosives and napalm.
When we looked back, the whole place was in flames.
It is estimated that between 100,000 and 150,000 civilians died during nearly 3 months of fighting, more than half the island's population. Many were buried without names. Others disappeared into the mud without witnesses. When the battle ended, what remained of Okinawa was an open graveyard, and those who survived did so in deplorable conditions.
Soldiers of the 77th Division, accompanied by a native, looked for civilians reported hiding behind the front lines. The natives are discovered down deep wells in century-old caves dug about 30 feet below the surface and tunneled between a number of the wells. Altogether, about 150 persons are found hiding. They'd been below ground for 57 days. Many of them suffered from colds and sores and were infested with fleas.
At last, the fighting burned itself out. Victory was a thick silence over smoking ruins and anonymous graves. The U.S. High Command came to a grim realization. What they had seen on Okinawa was unthinkable, a feral army capable of anything. After witnessing that, Hiroshima no longer seemed like a mere military option, but a desperate decision to end the war once and for all. When the last shots faded on Okinawa in June 1945, more than 12,000 American soldiers and nearly 100,000 Japanese lay dead. Half the island's civilians had been annihilated. Bodies still lay beneath the rubble while officers in Washington studied what came next: the invasion of the Japanese home islands. The plan had a name: Operation Downfall. Estimates said that to take Honshu and Kyushu, the main islands, millions of soldiers would be needed. Reports predicted between 500,000 and 1 million Allied casualties if the fighting resembled what they had just faced. Meanwhile, the Japanese trained the elderly, women, and children with bamboo spears. Okinawa carved a lesson in blood. Japan would not surrender, not while a single man still stood. Then something new reached the decision-makers' table. Something the world did not yet know: the atomic bomb. The Manhattan Project was ready. Scientists warned of its power, but even they did not know its full destructive reach. It was a weapon unlike anything before. A single bomb could erase a city. Was it inevitable? Was there another way? The Allies could lay siege to Japan, blockade its coasts, and wait for collapse. They could negotiate a partial surrender, but with each passing day, more soldiers would die. More kamikazes would fall from the sky. The United States was exhausted. Troop morale shattered, the human cost unbearable. Okinawa showed that the war could drag on for years, and that Japan, without winning, could still take tens of thousands more with it. That idea convinced authorities in Washington. The only thing left was to press the red button. On August 6th, Hiroshima was laid waste. 3 days later, Nagasaki vanished in fire and shadow. The bombs killed more than 100,000 people instantly. Many more died in the months and years that followed. After the horror, Japan surrendered.
Each face spoke without moving its lips. Each face was eloquent. They spoke of defeat, of despair, of disillusion. These were young faces and old, tired, bitter faces, sullen faces that won another chance. But all were the faces of a defeated people.
So, was Okinawa the invisible trigger for that decision? Would Hiroshima have happened without the fresh memory of kamikazes, death-infested tunnels, and caves filled with civilian corpses? We will never know for certain. We do know that after that cruel battle, the United States refused to risk another equal hell and chose to create an entirely new one. Okinawa was not just a battle. It was a warning, an open wound between two worlds that chose to fight to the last consequence. For 82 days, the island was an indiscriminate slaughterhouse. Nameless soldiers, mothers with children in their arms, youths who dreamed of going home, old men cornered in caves. All were swept up by the same wave of fire. The ground trembled, the sky burned, and the sea filled with bodies. Beyond its geography, Okinawa was a moral breaking point. There, the borders blurred between strategy and despair, between victory and madness. Fanaticism on one side and fear of human cost on the other created a perfect storm that changed the course of the war and the world. Many veterans were never the same. Many civilians could never speak of what they saw. The survivors carried the weight of the dead. Today, Okinawa is a land of peace, but its soil still holds scars. Human remains surface among the roots when new roads are built. It is as if the island itself insists on remembering. That bloody battle did not change history because of its military results, but because of what it revealed about the human soul when pushed to the limit. The capacity to resist without yielding and to destroy without restraint. The war ended a few weeks later. The echo of Okinawa, filled with pain and unanswerable questions, remains. And with that, we come to the end. If you enjoyed this video, we'll be waiting for you in our next episode as we continue exploring military history.